Hello, everyone. We are coming back at you live from the Liminal Pines. Hello, I'm Alan, and my camera isn't centered because I had to take it off of the mount momentarily. Welcome to my stream. Yes, I stream, and no, I don't have music for my stream quite yet because I'm lazy and I'm too lazy to figure it out. I'm too lazy to figure out a lot of things. Just so for now, if you're watching the stream, I recommend just throwing on some music to listen to if you're gonna also listen to me. But that's the joy of it, right? Is that you can listen to some stuff that doesn't that copyrighted. You can listen to some copyrighted music. I won't judge you, but you know what will judge you? Just like YouTube. If I were to play copyrighted music, so we're not gonna do that. So yeah, um, I wanna start off this by doing a little thing before we get started. I want to do a poll in the chat just because I need to use that more often. I think it's a fun thing to do. So we're gonna do a little poll. We're gonna do a poll of which point perspective. I guess which would it be linear perspective is the hardest, and we're gonna figure this out. So 1 point. We're gonna do 1 to 5 point to 2 point. We're gonna try to keep this formatted correctly. Point. I don't know how many things I can have. 3 point, 4 point, and I don't think I can have a fifth one. Hmm. You know what? 4 and 5 point are very similar. Does that work? Yeah, that works for me. Would you call it point perspective or would you call it linear perspective? I think you would call it linear perspective technically, right? Um, but that's not we're not getting into the semantics. We're not getting down to the nitty gritty. So yeah, today's stream we're going to be looking at linear perspective and all of its minutia that I am currently aware of. And this is going to accomplish two things. It's going to serve as uh, an opportunity for maybe for me to explain some stuff that maybe some people are having issues on. And two, it's just for me to cement my own knowledge of linear perspective, which is beneficial to learning, as if you're able to explain it to others. So that is essentially what we are going to be doing right here. So, but before we begin, we'll go ahead and we'll set this off to the side for now. We don't need this play yet. We're gonna do two things before we begin. One, we're gonna show off what are all the points. So okay, if you think about it, linear perspective is just perspective technically isn't real. If you want to be if you want to be real about it, the point perspectives are just what we can use as artists to explain our world around us. So there's 1 through 5 are basically the ones that you are going to use. Once you get into like points beyond that, I don't know if they're like possible, but if you want to be real, there is no such thing as point perspective, because each object that you are going to be drawing, no matter what, is going to have its own perspective because things do not exist on grids and things are not of all uniform shape. But if you want to hear some more people talk about perspective in a way that is probably a bit more structured, I would direct you over to the YouTube channel Proko TV, Proko TV, and those people over there, those artists over there, are fantastic. They have an online course on traditional linear perspective that is probably going to be a lot more helpful than what I'm going to be doing right here. This is all just for fun. So yeah. So what we're gonna do first for this stream is we're gonna flip through the sketchbook to see what I've been doing the past week, and then after that we are going to refill this fountain pen right here, and because it's out of ink and I'm gonna need it for today, and it's an opportunity for people watching if they have fountain pens. How does Alan refuel his fountain pens? So we're gonna do that as well. You think you know Proko? It wouldn't surprise me that you know Proko. Pretty ubiquitous on the YouTube art scene, been around for 10 plus years. Fantastic stuff. Anatomy courses, perspective courses, comic courses. Fantastic YouTube channel. But yeah. What did I do this past week? This was a stream that we did a few streams ago. This page right here, this was after the fact. Some more mundane sketches. You can see this was 28th of April, 25th of April. That kind of looks like a 3, but it's actually a 5. You can tell the density here is not perfect compared to what I normally do. Again, been having some wrist problems, so been trying to combat that. One of the ways I combat that is just through the frequency, toning the frequency down, so that's why it's a little bit less dense than say like this page right here. Normally I would do something more like this, but this is fine. Speaking of perspective, we already have a lot of instances of perspective here. This, I guess, would be your traditional 1-point perspective. This would be, again, 1-point perspective. This would be 1-point perspective. This right here would be 5-point perspective, I believe. Maybe more of a 4-point perspective that I'm looking at it. Yeah. Or fish eye is another thing you could say. This right here is 3-point perspective. Not done terribly well, might I add. We did these on the last stream, these two bits right here. This is playing around just some hatching, just because one of the things that you are able to do with a pen is that even you're not able to get gradation that you're able to with like a pencil. You're not able to go from dark to light on a grade like this right here. So the way you make up for it with a pen is you have your whites, your darks, and then you have the introduction of texture, which in a way, having your hatching is a midtone. As a midtone, that's how you do your gradation. It's not perfect gradation, but it's gradation nonetheless. Texture. Yeah. And this is a paper towel I use to keep stuff dry. This right here is just a little perspective study, I guess, of a photograph, and these are some figures done in perspective. We're not going to be looking at how to draw figures in perspective here because there's a lot of nuance there that I'm not too well equipped to talk about, and I'm still learning, so we're not going to talk about that at all, but this is your allusion to it, drawing a figure in perspective. Just know things get squashed. That's all I really want to say for that. Yeah, and this one right here, this would be 2-point perspective, I believe. Yeah, this would be just a 2-point perspective, just from a lower angle. Angles are really hard to do whenever you're doing things in perspective, because it's really easy to plop your horizon line down in the center of your frame, call it a day. For this right here, we'll talk about it more, about horizon lines, but instead of my horizon line being in the center of my picture plane, It's more down here-ish, even though we don't have a line there. But yeah, besides the point, we're going to we're gonna close the sketchbook. The limited edition Liminal Pines sketchbook, and then we're gonna refill our fountain pen. You subbed to me, thank you, Joe Cafazo. I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing the love. It seems that every day I gain a subscriber, but then also every day I lose a subscriber, so I've just been stagnating quite a bit. Yeah. But thank you, I do appreciate it. We're gonna make this the best stream ever. Just you wait. I'm gonna pop my sketchbook over to the side over here. And sorry for my chair squeaking. I don't have a very not squeaky chair. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna refill our fountain pen right here. This is exciting stuff. This is the stuff in art that you typically don't see all that often. But we're going to disassemble our pen. The cap off, counterclockwise twist. I'm using a converter. Normally when you buy this pen, it does not come with a converter, so you have to purchase that separately. Someone once tried to tell me that the converters are not cheap. They're very cheap. So, what's my favorite artist? I have a lot of favorite artists. Recently, I say recently, over the past like few like months or so, my favorite artist has been Kim Jung-gi. As far as like when it comes to sort of my my figure drawing, I'll pull it up on here real quick. I'll give you some photo references to that to him right here. Allow me to pull up my screen share right here. What are we looking for? You love poses? Yeah, I mean, this artist that I'm about to pull up right here, very inspirational when it comes to sort of just like drawing the figure in different poses and such. Just the overall arts. Oh, I was gonna say artsmanship. I don't think that's a real word, but craftsmanship. Sorry, I'm just formatting it right here so it's easy for you all to see. Transform, center to screen. So we'll go ahead and we'll fade in. This right here is Kim Jung-gi. As you can see right here, he's a Korean illustrator. Unfortunately, he did pass away in 2022. Note that. So he was contemporary for the longest time. As you can see, he is a Korean illustrator. But just the overall liveliness, I thought these would pull up larger on the screen here. But just the liveliness of the way that he sketches. He's known for his freehand sketches, so typically he will not he will not have an outline underneath all of his illustrations. He does it all with a pen, and some of his artworks are absolutely breathtaking. Detailed. He is a master of pose, of dynamicism, of perspective, of all of these disciplines, and it's something I look up to quite a bit. Allow me. I'm gonna simply a while. Let me pull up a Pinterest because I have some character portraits saved on here that I reference commonly. Often I reference them often. Oops, I'm still in studio mode. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. I don't know what I'm doing right here. So, like this right here, this is a Kim Jung-gi sketch. As you can tell, he has a very particular way of drawing faces that I find just so amazing. They aren't all him, but all of them that are done on this colored paper here are done by him. And I believe these are at conventions, so these are literally done on the spot. But they are just so incredibly lively. This one right here. And you can see like just the way he uses line weight to convey form. Absolutely breathtaking. Let me search up some more on here just so I can illustrate the point better. So currently the favorite artist is Kim Jung-gi, but that changes frequently. I gravitate towards a lot of manga artists as well for their amazing art. See, there are a lot of portraits here. He's a champion of. We're talking about perspective today. He is a champion of the box. You'll see him draw these boxes a lot when he's talking about perspective. So I guess this is pretty relevant for what we're doing here today. He is often said that if you can draw a box in perspective, then like you can place your figures within that box. You can see that sort of other artists have done similar things, but you know, you get my point. Shrimpy on YouTube? I don't think I've seen Shrimping. I'm not familiar with that artist. I'll make a little note. I'll make a little note here, and I'll do some research on him after the stream. I don't want to bore everyone too much with. I don't want to drag this out too much. You said Shrimpy? Shrimpy. Maybe I have seen. Because I've seen a lot of artists on YouTube, and maybe I just haven't. Maybe I just don't remember their stuff. Normal like you know, it's like it's really easy to just like watch something and then not pick up who did it, but I might recognize them. But yeah, I'll give them a look after the stream. And we'll check them out. I think Randolph says I have a hard time with 3-point perspective, but I am good at 1 point, 2 point, 4 point, and evens 5 point. That's funny because you need to know how to do 3-point perspective in order to do 4 and 5 point, but that's besides the fact. Okay, we're gonna refill this pen right here. Okay, we're gonna get back to it. We're gonna pop out our converter right here, and we're going to grab our ink. We are working with Archive ink. I've been using this ink for a while now, and I don't even think it's half empty yet. So I'm still working through it. But archival ink is known for its waterproofness. So I can use wet media on top of it. Yeah, I'm looking at this right here. It's like 3/4 full still. And I've been refilling these pens for quite a bit now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our converter and we're going to turn it counterclockwise, comme ça, until our plunger here is all the way at the bottom. And the plunger is all the way at the bottom. And there's no ink coming out of it, so that means this is dry. What we're going to do is we're going to dip it so it's pretty much in the ink, and we're going to turn clockwise. Now this can be messy, and I've seen some people say you can dip like your nib with the converter in it into the ink directly and then siphon ink, but I'm going to be real with this pen specifically. I'm not able to do that for some reason. It's just like I'm not able to do it with this pen. That might be my own fault. That might be a user error thing, but I find this to just generally be easier. Although messy. I'm just going to wipe that off. Perfect. We're going to get ink everywhere too. We're going to pop it back in there. And then, as easy as that, we go ahead and we spin it. And we're going to close this up before we spill it. Because I will spill it. Okay. And we're gonna pull out those notepads from earlier, and we're just gonna scribble until the ink gets a consistent flow, which shouldn't take long. You want one of these? I recommend it. Fountain pens are amazing, and I will probably never go back to a ballpoint pen after having a fountain pen just because I love drawing with these things. So I love writing with them, I love drawing with them. I own 3 fountain pens currently, and I want to get more. But this right here is a Lamy Safari. It's a Lamy Safari. It's about $30. Sometimes you can catch it on sale, and it comes in a variety of different colors. But yeah, this is the Lamy Safari. It's a pretty much a beginner fountain pen. It has these grooves right here that teach you how to hold it. And this is a fine point. You can see a little F right here on the nib, if it would focus. It says F right there. That means it's a fine point. You can get it in a few different thicknesses, but the fine point is pretty good if you just want to like start out with normal, like a normal fountain pen. I recommend it. I have a video on it on my channel. I believe it's it's like a review of the Lamy Safari for artists or something like that. It's an older video, older as far as like the age of my channel is concerned. But yeah, if you want a review of this pen specifically, you can go check that video out. It's a good video. I wrote a script for it. Ooh, a script. We wrote a script. But yeah. Okay. Let me do a little yawn. And we're gonna pull out the paper and we're gonna get started on perspective. I got it. Grab it. Okay. I have this clipboard here, not to hold the paper, but just so I have something solid to write on. That's not this cover right here. Okay. So, okay. All right, private. Today we're going to be learning about perspective. Wait. All right, private. Wait. Wait a second. All right, private. Today we're going to be learning about perspective. We're going to do perspective 101. All right, so today we're going to be learning about perspective. There are five. There are 5 kinds of perspective. You have your you have 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point, 5 point. So 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point, and 5 point. These are the ones that I know. It's more complicated than this, but we're just gonna go. This is like a good like beginners, a way to start for beginners. So your 1 point perspective is typically, we're just gonna do like a little like quick example of these right here of, I guess, like using, like, imagine this is your piece of paper. 1 point perspective is typically going to have a center point, and it is going to have lines that radiate from it, like this right here, and all of your horizontal lines are going to stay horizontal while all of your vertical lines stay vertical. I'm doing a poor job explaining this. Your vertical lines are perfectly vertical while all of your horizontal lines will always go towards your vanishing point right here. 2 point, same thing, except you have 2 vanishing points. So if you have a line right here, you're always going to have. Wait. Can I restart with this? I'm doing a really poor job. I didn't plan a script for this right here. Wait, wait. Okay. We're gonna ignore all of those things right there. We're just gonna say this. For everything that you do in art, you are going to have what is called a horizon line. So imagine that this is our picture plane right here. This is our sheet of paper. Everything is going to have a horizon line. Your horizon line is where your camera is situated. Your camera or your viewer. So currently right now where I'm sitting at my desk, I'm looking at my computer. My horizon line is going to be directly in the middle of my computer because that's where my eye line is. So this is kind of like your eye line. Okay. Now this is important. It's very important to establish your horizon line. So this is like where your camera is looking straight ahead of you. It's always going to be straight ahead no matter what because it's like the horizon, you know, like the horizon off in the distance. On your horizon line, when you're dealing with perspective, you are always going to have a vanishing point. So essentially what a vanishing point is, it's our way of rationalizing on a sheet of paper how things have three dimensions. Because we live in a three-dimensional world, as things get further away from us, they become smaller. And our vanishing point is essentially a mathematical way to emulate that. So what a vanishing point is that whenever something is moving further away from you, it is going to be moving towards this point. And when we talk about like 1 point perspective, 2 point perspective, 3, 4, 5, what you're referring to is the number of vanishing points and therefore the level of complexity of your perspective. So your photograph or your piece of artwork can have 1 to 5 vanishing points, and sometimes multiple, but we're not going to get into that. We're just going to go over the simple kinds right here. So that means that if I have let's say I have a square right here. This is a 2-dimensional square. If we wanted to add a 3rd dimension to that right there, you would always have to have your horizontal lines moving toward your vanishing point. This isn't perfect, obviously, but this is essentially what gives you the illusion of depth in a piece of artwork. So your horizon line and your vanishing point, 2 things that you want to establish before you work in any sort of perspective, and it becomes more natural over time. So I'm going to get a new sheet of paper just because I don't want to have all this clutter right here. We're using Bristol, smooth Bristol today. What an awful noise. What a terrible noise. Okay. What we're going to start with here is we are going to start with 1 point perspective. Well, actually, we'll do our paper vertical like this right here because I'm just going to go ahead. We're going to pull out this right here. This is a thumbnail card. I have a video where I make these as well, if you're interested in this sort of thing. Okay. So we're obviously not going to use an entire sheet of paper because that would be a waste. So this is going to be our picture plane right here. And we are first going to be looking at 1 point perspective. And we're going to show you what 1-point perspective is. We're going to be using a pencil to be drawing our grid here. So what we're going to do first is we're going to establish our horizon line. For the purposes of this right here, we're just going to keep it simple, and we're just going to say our horizon line is at the direct center of our picture plane. Direct center, you know what I mean. So you establish your horizon line, and then we're going to establish our vanishing point. And for 1-point perspective, we're just gonna pop that point directly in the center. And so whenever you're dealing with 1-point perspective, you are going to have all of your horizontal lines that are moving perpendicular to your picture plane are all going to be perfectly straight up and down. So we're just going to do that using this drafting ruler here to draw some straight lines. And I'm one to say that it's perfectly okay to have a grid whenever, like, if you want to draw something, if you want to get your perspective right, there is no shame in drawing a grid. I've seen tons of artists do it. Oop. Not perfect. Then I'll probably just so I need to get another ruler. In 1-point perspective, all of your vertical lines are going to be perfectly vertical, perpendicular to your horizon line, so 90 degrees there. And then all vertical or all horizontal points on your picture plane are going to go towards your vanishing point. They vanish as they get further away from you. And the way that we show this is that we're just going to have a bunch of lines radiating out like this. This is just going to act as a guide for when we start to draw. Cool. It looks very sloppy, but this is essentially how it is. And you can already start to imagine what what's going to be going on here. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to demonstrate this right here. So the thing with 1-point perspective, it assumes that all planes, and when I mean plane, I mean like the flat side of like a box, all planes that are facing you are going to be facing you perfectly in a perfect 2-dimensional way, meaning that it's going to have 90-degree angles no matter what. It's not realistic, but it can, because if you were to look at something, in order for it to have a completely 2-dimensional plane, you would have to be looking at it pretty much head on. But the only way you could do that in real life is if you were standing directly in front of it. So when you're using 1-point perspective, it's almost stylistic. What's my name? My name is Alan. Yeah, no, my name is Alan. I don't really have a YouTube name. It used to be Extra Normally, but then I changed my YouTube channel. I went through an entire thing like that. Or let's move the camera a bit closer so you can see it a bit better. Is that good? That's good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw our first plane right here. So all vertical, I should say, yeah. All right. I know I said all horizontal. All horizontal lines are going to lead to the vanishing point. Technically not. Just the ones that are receding away from you those horizontal lines. Is it useful? I feel like I'm doing a very terrible job explaining this, but it's fun for me and it's helping to learn. So you're gonna have, you're gonna have your different shapes and whatnot right here. Planes that are facing you are going to appear completely two-dimensional. Like that. And the trick with 1-point perspective is to just draw a line from your corners. So things that are receding away from you are always going to follow this line towards your vanishing point, which is in the center of the frame for us right here. Like that right there. And you might be wondering, like, why aren't we drawing a line underneath here? It's because with your horizon line, if you were to think about it, if you were staring directly at something, if it were completely at line with you, you would not be able to see the top or bottom of that plane. So if your object, if the bottom of it falls completely on your horizon line, it's just going to be a straight line. Fun fact. Same for this right here. For this corner. We'll do a shorter box. Oh my goodness, I did such a terrible job with that. Oops. We'll draw the line there. Yeah. 1-point perspective is not my favorite. It's the basis for all the other types of perspective, but it's the one that I just don't really care for all that much. We're just gonna do this by hand. So yeah, like with this one right here, ignore this line right here. You imagine that's like another box that's underneath it. I typically don't use a ruler when I'm doing perspective because I'm typically just eyeballing it. But you can start to see right here, you're getting the illusion of three-dimensionality. You have your planes that are receding from you, and depending on where they are, you can start to move them around in different ways because this box right here is directly below your horizon line. You are going to see the top of it. Like if you take your hand, hold it in front of you, directly at eye level. If you raise it above that eye level, you're going to see the bottom of your hand, but not the top. Same thing if you bring it below. And that's important to remember whenever you're working in perspective, is that it's important to know where your horizon line is, because you need to know if you're going to see the top or bottom of something, because that can make the world of a difference when it comes to, it doesn't even have to be proportional, but as long as your perspective is good, it's going to look right. And then you can start to do fun things with perspective as you go on. You can start to carve out different shapes. So like this one right here, we're going to draw a line like that. And then instead of doing a box, I'm going to do like a little triangle. Like that right there. So it works with a bunch of different shapes. So long as you keep your vertices, your vertexes, I guess would be the right word. As long as you keep your vertices in line somewhat, they are always going to be, you can start to make out different shapes. And you can like play around with this. This is not something that you have to get down like right off the bat. I'm not even perfect at it, but you can sort of start to carve different shapes out of boxes within the different perspectives. Just like that right there. So you can start to make all kinds of different shapes. Like say I wanted to do this right here. I have a box, right? But let's say I wanted to sort of carve out a little semicircle from this box right here. I could do that. So imagine that that line isn't right there. And we're just going to go ahead and we're going to draw some lines that go towards our vanishing point. Same thing with this right here. We're going to treat that as a vertex. Lots of lines, but you can do some erasing. So I guess we will also have one up here since it's below our horizon line. So we have that shape right there. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to keep those lines parallel with the rest. Boom. Same thing with that right there. And I'm not going to do this perfectly, but I'm just going to try and get that right there. We're going to go over with pen just so I can black it out a bit better. So even with something as simple as 1 point perspective, you can start to play around with sort of carving out shapes just from simple cubes. And you can start to do like just like making up like different shapes. So it's sort of like it gets you from the point of like using like just like blocky shapes, and it's like, okay, how do we make this more organic, right? And I think that that's a really fun thing to do. And you might be wondering why I didn't connect this directly to this corner right here, but it's just because this little top overhanging bit would naturally be covering this little overhang right here, since it's more of like an overhang. Yeah. 1 point perspective is not my favorite. I really do just use it as like a building block to the rest of the perspectives. But one thing that I do want to point out is that whenever you are dealing with 3 dimensions, you have a vanishing point, correct? Let me see if I can. I'll go ahead and I'll use a post-it note in order to demonstrate this right here with the camera. So let's say we have your 3-dimensional, we have your 2-dimensional thing right here. If you were looking at a plane from head on and you have, let's say that these lines are going to be equally spaced apart. I say equally in quotation marks because we're not using measurement right here. If I were to hold this in front of you right here, like directly in front of the camera, these are going to be equally spaced apart, right? You have equal chunks. But the second that I start to take this and rotate a corner away from you, suddenly, because of this thing that we call foreshortening, these sections right here are going to appear smaller to you than the ones that are closer to you, which is just because things tend to shrink as they get further away from you. But yeah, as something this, so like if I hold it like that right there, they're super close together now, even though technically on the sheet of paper they're equidistant apart. So that's something we also have to consider whenever we're dealing with 3 dimensions. And a fun thing you can do, we're going to demonstrate this right here, is, so like you see this little box right here. If I were to take this 2-dimensional plane and draw an X through it, because this is how, hello Twisted Zeus, yo, because this is how lines work. If you're to draw a line through each vertex and I were to draw a line through it, this shape is now completely cut in half, perfectly cut in half. And you can apply that to any face that's faced away from you. So like with this face right here, we're just going to draw a line through that, and we're going to take the point of intersection, draw an X through it, boom. That is the center point right there. Even though these are not equal, we know they're equal because we drew an X through it, because that's just one of the laws of how things like intersect, right? And you can apply that to all sorts of different shapes as well. So if I'm ever looking for something, I'm like, okay, I need to find the center of this like object. If you just quickly draw an X through it, you can find that center line pretty quickly. So that's just one of the tips that I use whatever, I'm like where you're dealing with foreshortening, because if I were to just measure this line out completely halfway, it would look weird. Because that's not how it works, because things that looks cool. Thank you. Well, it's about to look even cooler because we are going to be moving on to 2-point perspective. Unless anyone has any questions about 1-point perspective that I might have skipped over. You're you're ready to see the 3-point one? You're gonna have to wait, Buster, because we still got 2-point perspective. I say that in the nicest way possible. You're gonna do 2-point with me? Let's do this. Let's go. You have a hard time with 3-point. You need some tips. Okay. Sure. I'm gonna take a. Sorry, I have like my AirPods in and they're squeaking. Okay, we're gonna take our ruler right here. So same thing with the 1-point perspective. And with any perspective, you're going to establish your horizon line, which is your eye line, your camera's eye line. If you're talking about a person or a camera, just wherever your viewer is. We're not going to do this completely center just because. So we're going to establish our horizon line. So we got our horizon line. There are some fun things that you can do with your horizon line. If you're going to, well, we'll talk about it at the end because it's starting to get into sort of like angles and stuff. We'll talk about it at the very end. But just know you can do a lot of fun things with your horizon line in order to sort of like give your photograph a cool uh, a cool perspective that's not just like head on. So yeah, what we're gonna do is we're going to, as 2-point perspective entails, is we're going to choose instead of 1 point of vanishing, one vanishing point, we're going to choose 2. And what I'm going to do for this one right here is I am going to pick 2 vanishing points that are outside of our picture plane. This is something that you can do all the time. Your vanishing point can be wherever you want to be. It can be off the frame, it can be within the frame, it could be literally anywhere. Um, just know that the closer, and whenever you get past 2-point perspective, the closer your vanishing points are, your perspective is going to start to appear more distorted, which can be cool if used in a certain way. You can totally do that, but just know that the closer your vanishing points are, it's going to look less natural. You're going to start to get a lot of warping of your lines, and which I've seen used to like a pretty neat effect. But just know that if you want your perspective to look more natural, get these vanishing points pretty decently far out of your picture plane. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and I guess what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna establish a perpendicular somewhere perpendicular right here real quick, a perpendicular line. I'm gonna do this right here. Again, I am using a drafting ruler right now so I can draw a bunch of vertical lines in quick succession. 2-point perspective is the perspective that I use most commonly. It's the easiest for me to understand. It looks the most real, and you don't have to worry too much about like height, you know, the height of an object. All of your vertical lines, as stated, are going to be perpendicular to your horizon line, no matter what, which is something we're going to see change when we start adding a 3rd point later. But go ahead and do this. I'm not doing these like an equal space apart, kind of just doing them wherever. Again, no shame in drawing a grid. What's this ruler? This is a drafting ruler. Technically, this is used for like a naval charts. That's how I purchased it, but it's a parallel ruler, so it has these right here. So no matter like where you have this, as long as you have this like one side anchored, any line that you draw is going to be perfectly parallel to this line that you have established right here. So, woo, very, very nice for drawing a bunch of lines side by side instead of me having to painstakingly like be like, okay, is that perpendicular? Is that perpendicular? I don't have to worry about it. Okay. So here's where we start to get into 2-point perspective. I guess what we'll do right here is we have to know we are always going to have to establish, yeah, no problem. We're going to first establish just a random, like a line. This is going to be a corner of a box. We'll just call it a box right here. And here's where it starts to get a little confusing if you don't do perspective all that often. Anything that is to the right of this, so one plane of this, is going to go towards your right vanishing point. All planes to your left are going to vanish to this vanishing point right here. So I'll demonstrate that. We're going to have it completely in the center right here. So we're only working with 2. Planes. That line right there. And we're just going to say the box ends right here. So that's one plane right there. So you can see that it has nothing to do with this vanishing point over here because it's to the right of our corner right here. And then we're going to do the same thing with the other side. I'm just going to draw a line like that. So you can see it goes right there. We'll just go ahead and we'll draw a line right here. And that's going to be our other. And that's our box. So one thing I want you to note, we're going to go ahead and we're going to dark this in. One thing I want you to note is that because on our right side here, because our object is closer to this vanishing point, this angle is going to become even steeper. So if I were to draw a box that was right here, because it's getting closer to our vanishing point, the angle at which it moves away from us is going to get increasingly steeper. Inversely, the further away we get from our other vanishing point, it's going to get not horizontal, but it's going to get pretty near horizontal because you were further away from that vanishing point, your angle, you're rotating your box a bit more. I know it may not look like it right here, but just know that this is a this is a property of vanishing points. Look how like pretty much near horizontal that looks to our horizon line, but it's not. It's just the further away you get from that vanishing point, the more it's going to flatten out. That's why I said that it's important to have your vanishing points like further away if you want it to appear more natural, because in real life, say let's say we were looking at like a building, if you were just looking at it from a distance, depending on like how it's rotated, you're going to see both sides of it, and there's not going to be anything like crazy going on with your vanishing points. If you go up to like a wall, right, your vanishing points are going to be so like further out from you. If you're looking at something naturally, it's going to look pretty much flat to you. There's not going to be, depending on how you rotate it, there's not going to be any crazy distortion going on because that's just how it works. Like in real life, your vanishing points are going to be like crazy far away. So there's not going to be any crazy distortion. Like I'm looking at my computer monitor right here. If I were to just rotate it slightly to my right, okay, if you're going to rotate that slightly to your right, it still looks pretty much square. My favorite art supply? Pens. My favorite art supply is pens. I based all of my art around pen and ink. So that's the answer to that. But yeah, vanishing point, mumbo jumbo. So if I were to move my vanishing points right here, anything that I would draw is going to like have a pretty steep angle to it, right? All right, let's go ahead and we'll draw a box that's say it's below our horizon line. Same thing as before. Our planes to the left are going to vanish to this vanishing point right here, no matter what. We'll make this a bit, we'll make it extend off of the frame because this is also something you can do. You're not limited to just your picture plane. So let's say like that right there. We got one plane right there. Same thing with this one right here. There you go. But notice something interesting because we have now moved below our horizon line. We've introduced a new plane that we can see. So we always have to connect these vertexes or else it just looks like a wall, which if you want to do that, that's fine. Depending on like what you're drawing, but this is where it like gets interesting. Technically, this plane right here on this axis is going to be moving away from you. So it's going to connect to that vanishing point right there. Because it's to the left of this edge right here. Same thing for this edge right here. It's going to go to your right because that's where the plane is emanating from. And there you go. You have a little box. Is that clear? Do I need to explain that concept any further? Just the idea that you're always going to be out of your like vanishing point, right? You're always going to be connecting your vertices to your vanishing point. That's how we get our three-dimensionality. Like that right there. And consequently, the further or the closer we get to our horizon line, this is going to shrink a bit more because we're seeing less and less of that side right there. So if I were to draw the same cube like down here or a different cube down here, I'm going to connect that to right there. We're just kind of freeballing it. See, the further away we get from our horizon line, you're going to start to see more of that top plane. So that's something that's going to be like on the ground below you. Or like if you're on top of a building and you're looking down, you're going to be able to see more of the top of something as it gets further below you. So yeah, and as with before, you can start to play around with different shapes. It's like for that one right there. Let's say we're going to introduce this right here. We have a plane that's moving right there. This is just a nice little flat plane, right? We're going to go ahead and we're going to find the halfway point of that. That's foreshortening right there. Uh, I guess it like depends how I want to do this right here. You know what? We'll we'll do it going. Hmm, we'll work this out. We'll work this out. Yeah. So we have it going to that vanishing point right there. We'll go ahead and we'll do the same thing for this right here. That's a little cube. Cuboid, rectangular prism, what have you. Do I have to draw the vanishing point? You don't have to. Um, if you're really like trying to get your perspective correct, it would be good to draw your vanishing points. But depending on like the workflow you're working with can be kind of hard. So especially if you're like doing your vanishing points away, like outside of your picture plane, sometimes that can be a little frustrating. So you don't have to, but it's recommended, at least if you're like trying to like learn perspective, you know? Anyways, so we have a little box right here, and then of course this little bit right here, you're gonna see a bit of the bottom of the box, but you're gonna see such a tiny amount of it. It's basically gonna look like nothing. But like what you can do, like when you get here, is you can start to do. We're gonna cut the box again, like this right here. You can start to carve away at different points of your box, right? Same thing with this right here. We're gonna connect we're gonna connect our corners. That one's right there. We're gonna sort of draw the outline of that box that's over there. That right there. It's gonna be kind of like that. Let's say those are of equal blah blah blahs. We're gonna cut that in half. Boom, boom, and then we're gonna start to do these vertices. You can start to do all sorts of like different things. What I essentially did right here is out of that box, I carved out a little rectangular prism like that right there. That was a very like obtuse way of doing it. But yeah, you can start to like play around a bit with like doing different shapes and whatnot. Like draw that right there. We're just gonna free ball it with this. What some artists will do is they won't draw their vanishing points. They'll just establish a horizon line. And they kind of just intuitively know that if something is below that horizon line, you're going to see the top of it. And if it's above, you're going to see the bottom of it. And they guesstimate the degree to which you'll see the top of it, so how much of your top plane you see, and they'll sort of free ball where their vanishing points are. What's more important though is that you have your horizon line established. But since we're talking about 2 point perspective, we're going to draw our vanishing points here regardless. So we're going to take shape right there, right there. Again, we're just going to carve out like a little U shape. No, it's not perfect. Carve out a little U shape. And we're just going to start making shapes. I'm just going to start making shapes. like that right there. You know, you're kind of just you're playing around with sort of like the boxes, and you're sort of trying to imagine them as three-dimensional objects. So how do we like apply this to like a real, like, how, if we were looking at like a photograph, how would we decide where our vanishing points are? Um, and to that, I need to find like some sort of cuboid object, some sort of cubed object. I don't really have a cube right here. So we'll use this like eraser as like a as a reference. So let's say that this is a building. Say like I walk up to a building, okay? And like say this is like the front of the building, right? And this is the side of the building. That's the other side of the building. I'm gonna walk up to it, you know, say like we're really close to the building. Currently, there would be no vanishing points because we're looking at it from head on, dead in the center. It's two-dimensional as far as we're concerned. But then once we start to establish rotation, we start to establish vanishing points. And if we're going to be establishing a vanishing point, say that like if we were drawing from a photographic reference, if I were to draw a line straight through it, like this right here, say that were my horizon line, because we can see a lot of this face right here, okay, we can assume, like with this right here, like for this one right here, we're going to be further away from this vanishing point because we're still seeing a lot of this face right here. So because this is not completely two-dimensional, but pretty near two-dimensional, it's going to be pretty far away from our leftmost vanishing point. So it would be like if we were looking at a building from this angle right here, as far as our vantage points go, it's going to be really far from it. It's going to be like this far away from it if we were imagining it like that right there. But this one right here, we can barely see the side of this building, or right here. So we can conclude, because we can barely see the side of it, and because our angles right here, they're going to be pretty squashed. There's a lot of foreshortening going on right here. You know, if we were looking at it from that, it's pretty thick, but because we're viewing it from that angle right here, we have it rotated this plane away from this one really short, we can assume that our vanishing point is going to be pretty close to that face right there. Do you want, yeah, you can chat more if you want. Yeah, no, by all means, if you want to. I mean, if you want to talk, I mean, by all means. I appreciate anyone who interacts. I'm not gonna tell you what you can and can't do. This is a free space. I do enjoy talking with people, so please, by all means. Yeah. What's this, bro? We're talking about perspective. We're going through the kinds of perspective that I know. But anyways, when we're establishing our vanishing points, you essentially just want to look at how much foreshortening is going on with your planes. If there's a lot of distortion, a lot of squashing going on, your vanishing point's probably pretty close to that object. And if it looks pretty near two-dimensional, then it's good luck on my journey. Thank you, Lian Khan. I appreciate it. Yeah. If it's further away, if your face looks more two-dimensional, your vanishing point is probably pretty far away from that right there. Yeah. We're gonna do something else interesting. Thank you, Elian. I'm gonna show you one interesting thing that you can do with 2-point perspective. This is not something that I really see discussed all that often. Whenever I see people talk about perspective online, keep in mind, we're still going to be doing 2-point perspective. Right? This is still 2-point perspective. I gotta write it down. We're going to be doing 2-point perspective where this is our picture plane. And consider that I am standing upright, and this is all oriented as it is. This would be like portrait mode if you were taking a photograph on your camera in portrait mode. An interesting thing that you can do when you're doing 2-point perspective, we're going to establish our horizon line. Now, like, what did I just say? I just said that, like, oh, wait a minute. I thought your horizon line was always going to be perpendicular to your picture plane. So shouldn't I be drawing my horizon line like this right here? Yes, but we're doing like what I would be like this would be like something that's a bit more stylized. And keep in mind, this is gonna get kind of like weird, and like obtuse. But I'm gonna try and walk you through it. So we're gonna do our 2 vanishing points again. Okay. So the same rules apply. Any line that is going to be perpendicular to your horizon line, in this instance, is going to be straight. But because we have turned our horizon line to be up and down, you would think that, oh, all of my straight lines are going to be like this right here. But no. We're going to keep it the same. All of our perpendicular lines are they're all of our straight lines are still going to be perpendicular to your horizon. They're going to form a 90-degree angle. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing that we did before. And we are going to, first, we're going to establish a perpendicular angle. That right there. Not perfect, but it's okay. We're going to do the same thing. Oh no, my ruler. I need to come over here. Yeah. And if anyone has any questions while I'm doing this, please feel free to ask, because I'm not a teacher. I don't have a teaching degree or anything, so I might not always be the best at explaining things. And we're gonna do the same thing here, going down. Messed up. I gotta make sure that I'm holding one side down enough. We're gonna do the same thing here, but instead, because we're in a vertical orientation, but we still have vanishing points that are here and up here, all vertical lines instead are going to conjoin up here and down here. So in what context would you want to use this? Like, in what context does this seem relevant? Well, consider that you're standing on the edge of a cliff, right? Consider that, like, you are standing on the edge of a cliff and you're looking out on on like a beautiful like vista or whatever. If you were to look straight ahead, you would see things that are right in front of you. But if you were to look down, like pretty far down, you would see the so like say like there's a waterfall. You would see a pool at the bottom of that waterfall. Correct? So this method of 2-point perspective is a way that you can capture both what is in front of you. Try and keep this in mind. Imagine this: you're going to be capturing on your picture plane what is directly in front of you and what is directly below you, all at the same time. So again, imagine you're taking a photo with like your camera, and this is in vertical, like a angle like that right there. Your lines like that are always going to be perpendicular to your horizon line. Consider this right here. In a way, we're sort of like doing a 3-point perspective, just without the 3 points. We're doing a part of 3-point perspective, which we'll get like talk about a bit more later, just with 2 points. Because like part of this is rooted in the fundamentals of 3-point perspective. So if you think about this right here, imagine like you were like on top of a skyscraper. If you were to look forward directly ahead of you, you would see the top of this skyscraper, but as it would not stay the same shape going all the way down. That skyscraper, as you like get further away from it, as the bottom, and say like this is the street down here, it's gonna look pretty small because you're way up here. So if you think about it, if you were to draw your perspective lines like this right here, you're seeing simultaneously what's right in front of you as it gets like closer up here, and what's going to be like directly below you at the same time. It's kind of weird. It's all weird stuff, but I mean, the further you get to this vanishing point up here, it's going to look like it's more directly in front of you. And as you get down to right here, this is like the flat ground. If we were to like do the ground right there, that's like directly below you. This is going to be like what's directly in front of you, right? So if we were to draw a box like up in here, we start to have those vanishing points come into play. And then same thing down here. Let me find it. I have an example of this in a book that I have. Actually, in this book right here, Spirited Away, that uses this technique. I need to find it. Interesting indeed. Yeah. Wait, I just said yeah to my own. That is pretty interesting. I know I've seen it. Here, I don't remember exactly which page it's on. It's gonna be embarrassing if I can't find it. This is a really cool art book, by the way. Right, let me pull up. Allow me to pull up. And if you want to talk about perspective, this movie uses a lot of perspective. You can see a lot of, like, look, that's 2-point perspective. I know it's in here. Don't gaslight me. Look at that. This is almost 1-point perspective. So this right here, yeah. So this is the thing that I was talking about right here. So it's very trippy how it is right here because of how it is. It's almost as if this catwalk right here is at like the bottom. Like if you were to look directly down, these would be directly below you. And this is like a bunch of other stuff. But if you were to look directly in front of you, you would see this like door right here, because this is a balcony. So you're standing right here, you're looking directly ahead of you. Boom. But as your gaze moves downwards, you follow this path. And then you're looking right here, this is what's directly below you. So it's kind of like that right there, you know, where it's like up here, you're just seeing like that 2-dimensional plane, right? And then you're following down. You're imagine like there's a building there. You're looking down the face of it. until you're looking directly on the ground. It's trippy stuff. I can't think of a way that, like, a reason you would use this except for like in an animation, like a tracking shot. Like, you know, like it's like, how do you do like a complex animated shot where you're looking directly and you want to mimic a camera movement? You would use sort of like this right here, right? You would move your camera right here, say like you only, like, this was your frame, right? You ignore all of this junk right here. You're like, okay, I want to, because of the animation, there is no such thing as three-dimensional space. I wanted to pan down. It's like, how do you do that on a like a 2D image? You would do this right here, and as you're like looking down, your eye starts moving down. And it's like, oh, we've essentially, like, the camera, imagine the camera's facing this way. You've done like this motion right here. You did a 90-degree tilt, all using 2 dimensions, like a 2-dimensional plane. Or at least that's how I've come to understand it. Again, I have no like personal application that I could use it for. It's just something I picked up on, and it's like, it's something you can do because of just like the nature of having like perspective. Yeah. I'm glad. Okay, if Twisted Zeus, if you were able to comprehend any of that, I applaud you, because I feel like I'm doing such an awful job explaining it. But yeah, same thing with this right here. And like, you can draw. You can draw. Just sort of like free-balling it, you know? The closer you get to your horizon line, the more it's gonna follow that, because you imagine your lines are like emanating out from that right there. But since it's so close, it's gonna be almost vertical. But like, you can start to, again, like that right there. You know, because if you're looking like further down on something, you're not gonna see the sides as much because it's directly below you. So it's the same concept as like with like something like 1 point perspective. You know, and the further you come up here, it's just confusing because you have because like you need to be perpendicular to horizon line. Your mind wants to make this perfectly vertical, but it's the horizontal line in this case instead. And we're just gonna, another fun thing, another fun thing uh, about perspective is that things, there's this thing called object permanence, and it's when things block other things. They block other things, but they still exist behind that thing. But perspective also includes that sort of thing. Boom. Habes. Hello, Habes. How are you? I feel like it has been so long. Thank you for commenting on my last of this video. I do appreciate that. Have I played Clair Obscur Expedition 33? No, and I want to. But I just recently bought the Oblivion remaster. So my game purchases are halted for the moment because I need to beat that game, and I paid $50 for it. But no, I really want to play Clair Obscur. Everyone's talking about it. It's game of the year, game of the year, game of the year, and yeah. I'll play it at some point. Um, I'll probably wait for it to go on sale. But I really want to play it. Everyone's talking about it. All my friends are talking about it. I'm having the biggest FOMO of my life. Um, yeah, it's a rough world out there. I'm still stuck on playing Oblivion. It's amazing. I've heard, and it's got so much French in it, that my friends have been coming to me like, "What does this mean? What does this mean? What does this word mean?" I have to like translate for them pretty much because I know a little bit of French. I'm not fluent, but I know a little bit of French. Yeah. 2 point perspective, rotated 90 degrees. Boom, boom, boom. We're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to. Isn't it amazing that this Bristol board is thick enough that you can't see through it? Isn't that amazing? I think that's amazing. What's not amazing is that there's some sticky stuff on my clipboard. Okay. So that's our 1 to 2 point. Two things of 2 point perspective right here. We're going to be moving on to 3 point perspective. The long awaited 3 point perspective. 3 point perspective is my favorite perspective to do whenever I'm like feeling fancy, because it can sort of it can take sort of a flatter image and sort of give it some pizzazz, if you will. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna establish our horizon line. Okay, so in what context would we want to do 3 point perspective? In what context would we want to do 3 point perspective? I'm gonna pull out my sketchbook. I'm gonna show you that one sketch that I showed off earlier in case you missed it. 3 point perspective is used whenever you are drawing a 3-dimensional 3 point time. Whoa! 3 point perspective is used when you want to establish height, or a vertical, or like height as far as like how high something is, or depth at how deep something is. Oh, Shino Games, hello! Oh, I feel like everyone's here. Oh my goodness. Hello, everybody! Hello! This is awesome. I feel like I haven't talked to so many people in so long. This is great. This is amazing. 3 point perspective. So this is a very rough 3 point perspective. But you can see we already have our 2 point perspective, right? We have our horizon line that's pretty much down here, right? And then we have our vanishing points that are out here. We have our planes that are emanating from our vertices. But there's a super secret third vanishing point that's somewhere up here. It's somewhere up here. So if we were to follow, again, this isn't like perfect. I did not do it perfectly. If we were to follow these lines right here, in order to give the illusion of something being very high and that we're very close to it, you'll use 3 point perspective if you're like closer to an object, because you know, the closer you get to an object, if you were to look up, it starts to recede away from you. If you were further away from a building, you start to see less of 3 point perspective because you're not right up on it. So if you were to look at like a building from like a mile away, I don't know how big this theoretical building is, but you're not going to see a lot of, you're really not going to see any 3 point perspective. You need to be pretty much way up on it. But if you can see right here, we have a third point up here. Every vertical line is going to meet at that vanishing point. And what that does is that gives us the illusion that this thing that we're looking at, we're close to it and it's receding away from you. If you think about it, it's the same thing as having all of these other types of perspective. You know, you have planes that you want to show are receding away from you, and that's the illusion we're trying to create. Adding a third point here is going to just further emphasize that. So we'll show you how that works. We're gonna draw. So we're gonna do the same thing that we did with our 2 point perspective. We got our horizon line. And we got our 2 vanishing points. And then we're just gonna add another vanishing point up here somewhere. Again, your vanishing points, where you add them, depends on like the rotation of that object in a 3-dimensional space. That's something you have to get an eye for. It depends on how close how rotated it is. It's that's something you really just have to get an eye for, and you will get an eye for it as you if you carefully observe an image. But we're gonna pull in a bit closer to that. We have not too many cat shadows. And here's the fun part. You know how earlier I was using this nifty little thing to draw vertical lines like that parallel to each other? There is no such thing as parallel lines in 3-point perspective, which is frustrating. But it's more realistic. It's not ultra realistic, but it's more realistic. But that means that every vertical line that we have is going to meet at that vanishing point. And if you look at these grids, you can start to like carve out shapes. If you were to like think about it in like sculpting terms, I guess, or if you were to think three-dimensionally. 3-point perspective is fun, but it is just really annoying because you have to consider another point of another vanishing point, essentially. So if you were to think about like this right here, what I just drew, if we didn't have these, like ignore those vanishing points, if you think about it, imagine like this is just like a plane, like a flat sheet of paper. I've essentially taken this right here and I've sort of rotated it like that right there. See? That's kind of what's going on right here. You have these points receding away from you. But once you start to add like more points into there. So imagine like this is our horizon line, right? Here's something we're gonna do. We're gonna draw out a box above our horizon line, like that right there. And we're going to, here's the frustrating part. We're gonna do the same thing that we did earlier, but with that added 3-point perspective. And you can start to see how this begins to get like a little wonky. You can sort of just like play around with it. I don't know. Wait, I don't know what I'm doing right here. Obviously, wait. Oh my goodness, I've already messed up. Wait, give me a sec. Sorry. See, even this is confusing to me sometimes. I normally don't like draw the grid all the time. I kind of just like look out for it. What are we doing? We're just drawing a cube. 3-point perspective. See what I another thing that I want to say is that because our point is so close to the picture plane, it is starting to cause a little bit of distortion. Because that's just how it is. So we're seeing a lot of wonky stuff happen here. Oh my god. Does that make sense? Wait, I feel like this isn't making sense. Oh my god. It's weird. I feel like I should have added my point up further. That's my bad. I guess this would be like your perfectly vertical line. This would sort of be like your 2-point. If this were like a large building, this would be your cube right here. Right? That's a corner. that's a cube. It's just like it gets distorted when you add that third point perspective. But if we can imagine this is like a building that's going way high up, isn't it? It's extending out of the frame. It's almost as if I'm like standing like right in front of the building and I'm looking up, and it's sort of like extending away from me. That's sort of how I think of it. Definitely very distorted what I got going on right here. That's why it was confusing me. So this is what happens whenever your like perspective points are too close to your picture plane. You see what I mean? The distortion, that is a cube because you added that like third point of perspective right there. Um, it starts to look, things start to squash a lot. And that's like one of the reasons you would use a 3 point perspective is if you're trying to show an extreme perspective, right? I guess I could show it from up here. So you can see that we're still drawing the cube, right? We are still effectively drawing that cube. But because we have added a third point, a third vanishing point, you have to contend with that third vanishing point mucking things up. Like that right there. And then you can do like the same thing that we were doing earlier, right? It's like that's one face, the other face. We'll make it a bit thicker. And the good thing about 3 point perspective is that you don't really need to use it all that often. A lot of the times, 2 point perspective is good enough because it's going to look most natural to us. We don't see a lot of things in 3 point perspective unless we like are like really close to them. Like if you're like really close to a really tall building, then you start to introduce that third point of perspective. But like for most things, like on your desk, like if I'm looking on my desk right here, there's not a lot of perspective warping going on because it's not an extreme angle essentially. So we can do that same thing that we did with like these ones right here, where you can start to carve out shapes. You can sort of do the same thing here, is that you can like establish like that right there. We know that that's a vertex, that's a vertex, this is a vertex, it's a vertex right here. Sort of do this. It's like, okay, you can make like a little triangle out of that. You can do the same thing going the other way. Right. You can begin to sort of like do like really crazy things with it. For the most part, it really is all just boxes. Right. Everything is just boxes, and you're rotating those boxes in a three-dimensional space. Yeah. 3 point perspective is fun. It really is. I want to pull out the book here again and see if we can find some uses of 3 point perspective, just to show you how frequently, or I guess infrequently, it pops up. Like this. This is a 2 point perspective. this, even though you have a really tall building, right? I'm gonna move that light out of the way because these things are shiny. Even though you have a really tall building, there's not really a third point of perspective going on here. If you check all your lines, they're more or less parallel. So you're not really seeing any warping. Potentially when you get right here, this starts to curve in a little bit, but even then, it's really not much. So you can see that even like with this right here, all your lines are pretty much parallel. Right here with the scene right here, parallel as you're moving through. There's no third point of perspective here. This one, on the other hand, if you can see, there is a subtle sort of third point that's going on there. So as you're moving throughout your frame vertically, you can see our lines are not parallel. There is, if we were to trace all of these lines to a vanishing point, they would be somewhere way up here. And that's how you get a subtle third point perspective. Normally, whenever you're doing a third point of perspective, it's not going to be this extreme. This point is going to be way up here because you're not going to have this amount of perspective unless, again, you are right up on something. Like this right here. These are all vertical. 2-point perspective. 2-point perspective. You're not really having a third point. And this is like the painterly way to do it, you know? This is like the artistic way to do it. That you're having. You're not always trying to emulate reality. In some ways you are when you're trying to make a point, but in a lot of ways, just a simple 2-point perspective is good enough. For this one right here, these vertical lines, I'm sure there's like probably a really subtle third point perspective going right here, but if there is, it's really, really, really subtle. Like this one right here, even though like we're at a low angle, it's 2 points, you know? It's a 2-point perspective. Even though we're technically like really close up on a building, you don't have to have a third point there in order for it to make sense. So that's why I'm saying like whenever you're doing perspective within like the confines of your art, sometimes reality is not like the thing that you're trying to emulate. You're trying to emulate a feeling. And if you feel that your piece of art would benefit best from 2-point perspective, which in a lot of ways it will, then you should stick with that. All for that. Okay. Are we ready for give me a second, I need to stretch real quick. Ooh, are we ready for the coveted 4-point perspective? Because I think we are. Because I think we are. Unless anyone has any other questions about 3-point perspective and when you would use it, why you would use it. We're going to start to see a lot more lines here. Kaylin, did you enjoy that 3-point perspective tutorial? Did you get that? Did it clear up all the questions that you had? You can't laugh. You're not allowed to laugh. Whew. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. I don't know about you guys, but I get a lot of enjoyment out of doing stuff like this. I'm crying too. You're gonna cry even more with this right here. This would be a lot easier if I had a circular thing that was big enough, because we're gonna be working with circles here. Once you get in a 4-point perspective, we're gonna start working with circles. I'm looking around real quick. Anything circular in here? that circular enough? No, it's not big enough. Anyways, we're not gonna worry about it. We'll just freehand the circular bit. Same thing with 3-point perspective. Am I tired of drawing? Heck no. I love drawing. I try and draw every day. I mean, it is something that I enjoy that much that I do just like doing it. I mean, a lot of the time I have to take breaks, but other than that, circles. Well, we're just gonna do one circle for this. The circles start to appear more as you get further along. Don't fret too much. Don't fret too much. Actually, we can fret a bit. This is when it starts to get complicated. 4-point perspective. I can't imagine a circumstance where you would use 4-point perspective unless you were really trying to like impress somebody. Unless you were really trying to like show off. Okay, so same thing with our 3-point perspective. You have our 2 vanishing points. This is going to stay the same. Your horizon line. Right? And you're also going to have your 3rd vanishing point. Because 4-point comes from 3-point perspective. Like that right there. What's fun about 4-point perspective is that you add a 4th point below. As we add more points to our perspective grid, the more lifelike it becomes. Because, in fact, if you were to look at something right now, in theory, there is no such thing as a straight line when it comes to your eye. Because that's just how it works. Your eye is a circle. You perceive things as straight lines. They are actually not really straight from your perspective, and that's the idea of perspective. And as we add more points, more vanishing points, we start to approach that reality more and more. The only difference is that whenever you're working on a picture plane like this right here, since I have my perspective lines really close together, my vanishing points are really close to our picture plane, it's going to appear more distorted. So it's not really going to look lifelike. It's going to look more like a fisheye lens, if you're familiar with that type of camera shot. And in real life, your vanishing points are going to be further away, right? Technically, the lines are going to have a slight curve to them. That's how the eye works. We just don't perceive it that way. Our brain does a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to perception. Our brain rationalizes these slightly curved lines as straight lines because we need that. So what you're going to do is, earlier when we were drawing our lines, our vertical lines are going to connect to our vanishing point. Same thing if you were to put your vanishing point down here, within 3-point perspective, you would have to connect it to that vanishing point. But because our vertical lines are vanishing to the top and bottom, these are going to be our only straight lines within this right here. Okay. We're going to start to, it's going to be a very subtle curve. I'm trying to keep this as like even as possible. Because I'm doing this by hand, I'm sure there are tools out there that can help with it. The further away you get from your center line right here, the more distorted this becomes. And this is why I was saying earlier why I wanted like a circle thing, because once you reach this vanishing point right here, you essentially created like a concentric circle, or I guess like a perfect circle. So if you were to like take this one right here, I guess we'll move it slightly to the side. You're almost creating like a perfect circle. it's very rough, but this is essentially the grid we're working with. There are tools that you can use to sort of get this more perfect, or you just eyeball it. Eyeballing it works too. Kim Jung-gi that we were talking about earlier, he did a lot of eyeballing, but he did study a lot of it, so he can sort of do that. And we're working with the same thing here essentially, where it's like 2 point perspective, except you just have two vanishing points again on top of all of it, which in a way seems more complicated, but if you really break it down, all you're really doing is just you're doing 2 point perspective again. Nothing has changed really. Your vertical lines are now just going to have a slight curve to them, and they're going to become more and more distorted as it gets away from your center point. And that's where the fisheye sort of thing comes from. If you look at like fisheye lenses, fisheye shots in movies, they're gonna have this sort of like really wonky perspective. You see it in anime a lot. Whenever a character is distressed, the camera will get really close to their face, and they'll sort of have this like big eye. That's a terrible sound. I'm sorry. They'll have this sort of like big eye, wide eye thing going. You see it a lot in Neon Genesis Evangelion. Like you'll sort of have this like wide eye thing going on to emphasize like a character's like derangement or their distress. So having this perspective can be a really cool way to sort of emphasize like emotion. It can sort of give a whimsical feeling. There's an air of whimsy, and we're all about whimsy in this place. So that's our grid right there. That looks really complicated, but it's really not. In a way, I kind of prefer 4 point perspective over 3 point perspective. So I guess we'll do it with the pencil to show you. So it's the same thing as earlier. We have our we're okay, so we're gonna let's just say that this is a perfect square like right in front of us. This is directly in front of us. It's not perfect, obviously, but like yeah, let's just say that that's like directly in front of us. This is a cube. If we move it to the side, we're gonna start to see a little bit of distortion. Like that right there. And for these, you can also connect these to be rounded, or you could do them as like straight lines. I kind of like having them as straight lines, kind of, but you can also have them rounded as well. I guess it would be you can't draw this. That's okay. I don't really like doing this either if I'm being completely honest. But yeah. So let's say we wanted to draw from this angle right here. This vanishing point. So there's going to be this like curve that gets more distorted the further away you get. It's fun. Trust me. Again, if you wanted to curve these, you can, or you could do it the way I'm doing right here. If you were to curve it right here, it's just your lines. These lines right here would start to have a curve to them as well, which also works. But yeah, from here you can start to do a lot of crazy. You can do a lot of crazy things. Like we got a box right there, and it gets more distorted the further away we get from our little vertex that we have there. But like you can sort of see like the thing that we're going for, right? We're gonna put a box that's way up here. It's gonna look really curved. That's fun, isn't it? Again, we're gonna go back to I'm gonna pull up that Kim Jong-gi stuff that we were looking at earlier. I'm gonna see if I can find an example. Um, I'm gonna show you how Kim Jong-gi was just an absolute insane lunatic when it comes to perspective. This right here. This is using a 4-point perspective. Technically, you can see sort of like how his lines as they're getting further away, they're sort of they almost have like a curve to them. And he exaggerates it. And his if his horizon line is like up here, essentially. So the further away you get down here, there's going to be more curving. Let me see if I can find another example. Like this right here. It uses several different kinds of perspective at once. Let's see what can I find one of him just doing like a fisheye. Let me just look up or I guess we'll look up just 4-point perspective. This is a very exaggerated 4-point perspective. And you can see they did the curved line from their two vanishing points out here. But this is like a true fisheye. And like this is using a fisheye perspective. Come on. Come on, partner. This is using fisheye perspective. The lines aren't as exaggerated. You see, there's a slight curve to them. They're not as crazy as like ours is, but it's still there. Um, this right here, 4-point perspective, loading. So you can exaggerate it in different ways. And again, it all just depends on how far away your vanishing points are from your picture plane. And that's the big thing I want to like emphasize is that your level of distortion is going to depend on how close your vanishing points are to your picture plane. And the further away they are, the more that's like reality. Like with this one right here, it's not a crazy amount of 4-point that's going on, but it's like subtly there. And these people are probably explaining it better than I am. This looks like freehand. Paul Heston, I've seen this guy quite a bit. Curved lines emanating out. This is actually 5-point perspective in certain ways. But we'll look. Oh, I don't have it pulled up. Damn it. Yeah, I was looking at this one right here. Yeah, that's like a 4-point, and then almost like a 5-point going on here, kind of. Now, does that make sense? Does that make sense? I'm drawing the grid here to sort of like try and like make it make sense. I want to use the same thing that I've been doing with this. Draw like a little shape here, little curve shape. It ain't perfect. But even just having like those outlines exist as being slightly curved can do a lot for your perspective. 4-point is one of those ones I want to like get better at, and it's like one of those things it's like you kind of just have to practice it in order to do better with it. I would love to be able to do more like this right here. I've done like sketches. I don't know if I have my old sketchbook here. I think this is the sketchbook I have them in. I tried doing like some sort of like 4-point like fisheye type stuff with some of these sketches, like this one right here. Human faces in like a fisheye lens start to like get really wonky, and it's kind of easier to do because you can play around with the distortion a bit more, you know? I don't know if I have any. I don't know if I have any more. Little box. A way that's showing like how boxes can sort of like inform figure perspective. Yeah, just again, just being like you can apply it in different ways. Totally. Oh, there I was trying to do a 4-point perspective. You know, I want to get another one of these sketchbooks. I don't really care for my big one all that much. I'm probably gonna switch to a smaller Moleskine again, but that's besides the point. So yeah, that's 4-point perspective. Let me get another sheet of paper to do 5. Okay, currently, how do we feel about all this? Is this starting to make sense? Are the brains breaking as we're getting further along? Okay, we'll do 5-point perspective real quick because it's pretty easy, and then we'll cap it off for the night. I'll give some closing remarks. I'll sort of like explain a few different things that I didn't get to touch on here, but for the most part, I mean, we've been doing really good. We've been doing really good here. Bing, bing, bing. You know what we can do? We can do this to make it a bit easier on ourselves. Good old 5-point perspective. We're going to do the same thing as with our 4-point perspective. Okay, so we got our horizon line. Lots of grid drawing. I've seen a lot of people get away from doing the grids. They'll kind of just like they'll just go based off their horizon line, which I mean you not necessarily you'd want to do that, but I have seen a lot of people do such a thing. Not all my points here are equidistant, so it's not going to be a perfect circle, but and I just can't draw a good circle. Okay, so we got our circle up here. We're sort of going to do the same thing where we sort of it doesn't have to be perfect. We're doing this for learning purposes, of course. Um, so here's the fun thing is that we're gonna be drawing a lot of lines here. Okay, so we have that right there. But then also, here's our fifth point right here. It's right in the center. Oh my goodness, I know. So we have to draw similar. So what you're doing with 5 point perspective is you're just adding another vanishing point in the center of your frame, like 1 point perspective. So in a way, 5 point perspective is almost as easy in a way, if this can be like easy. And we're doing with so many lines here. So many lines, it's becoming like actually obtuse. So yeah, you got like this right here. So instead of following this vanishing point right here, you're gonna be following this vanishing point right here. And then but you're gonna be following this vanishing point for this one right here. Like that right there. And when you start getting into this kind of perspective, like 5 point, 6 point, 7 point, you can add a vanishing point. The point of this is that you can add a vanishing point literally anywhere. If I want, I can add a vanishing point right here and still have it be like, say I ignored this one right here. This is still my fifth point of perspective, and I'm gonna try and do this in like the easiest way that I can imagine. But I guess it would be like this, but instead these lines vanish up here, right? See, in reality, there's an infinite amount of vanishing points because vanishing points don't exist. They're just guidelines that we use in order to like make things easier. Um, and therefore, you can vanishing points only exist when you move. Like a vanishing point becomes a vanishing point when you are sort of getting close to an object, rotating it, looking up and down. That's essentially all a vanishing point is. And so, my point being with that is that you shouldn't get too worked up with like the perfect math of it all. As long as you can do a 2 point perspective fairly well, you've pretty much got all of them down. And it's like, if you want to get fancy, you could do a 4 point perspective. But for the rest of it, I mean, it really, it really doesn't. Oh, you did, you left for a while, so you didn't get to do 4 and 5 point. I mean, that's fine. I wouldn't say you missed out much. Well, the only thing you missed out on is just the idea that vanishing points and perspective and everything, every object is going to have its own vanishing point. If we wanted to draw my horizon line like here and here, right? And as long as I follow like rules with it, the world is my oyster. Literally, like, because we're working with three-dimensional objects, there is so much that you can do um with all of it. And it's like it's your imagination, right? It's like what is it that I want to do? How do I feel? Do I feel comfortable with it? And I'm like, can I practice? Right? So it's just like, how do we manipulate three-dimensional objects and how do we do that on paper? Your ideas of perspective starting with 1 point, it's how do we rationalize this in ways that make sense to us? So 1 point, really simple, but you have like a very flat looking image. This can work in certain ways. You'll see a lot of Renaissance paintings that do a 1 point perspective, 2 point perspective, plenty plenty of 2 point perspective in tons of art. This is like how your eye commonly sees a lot of things, is in a two, like a quote unquote 2 point perspective. It's how your brain interprets it. Your 3 point, you do see 3 point perspective when you start like introducing height, really tall things, things that are sunken really low into the ground. 4 point perspective. This is technically how we see, uh, but this is just like a very exaggerated way of doing it. Like, you can do 4 point perspective to just emphasize certain emotions. Same thing with 5 point perspective, right? But you're always going to be, no matter what, you're going to be working with an x and a z axis, no matter what. And there's always going to be x, y's, and z's, right? Um, I recommend, if you want to study perspective, get some little wooden, uh, some like little wooden cubes, or shapes, and just like draw them from different angles. Or there are a lot of online resources that you can use to sort of help you out. Um, you can use those online tools to just draw in perspective and just like try and challenge yourself, but also like stay comfortable. you know, stay comfortable with what you're doing. And it's something you'll just like have to like pick up on as time goes on, and it's one of those things where it's like you'll get better at it as time passes. And I'm not a master of perspective. I'm pretty sure all of this has like been very clear with that. Is that like I'm not the best at all of this, but you know what? I'm trying to learn. And that's what's important. So yeah. Um are there any questions? What future videos do I have coming up? Last of Us was so good. It deserves so many more views. I wholly agree with you, Habes. It does deserve more views. Um the next video I am working on, I have a script, a rough draft for it up. It's over. I don't have the game disc with me here, but it's over The Last Guardian. Um, let's see. It's I don't know if I can pull up. Let me not do it on Pinterest. My next video I'm working on is over this game right here. Absolutely flawless masterpiece of a game. I'm probably not going to be streaming it because I need to get good gameplay recording of it. And just as it stands, my PlayStation does not do very high res recordings when streaming, so I'm gonna have to do it natively, which means I can't stream it, unfortunately. But it's a very short game, so I do recommend uh play it if you have a PlayStation 4 or a PlayStation, or watch someone play it. It's like a 12-hour game. But more or less, what the video is going to be over this game, and we're talking about more of the art side of it. We're talking about environmental design and how that informs storytelling. We're talking about negative space, use of negative space. We're talking about like nonverbal storytelling, which I guess is environmental storytelling, and we're talking about how that is interwoven into the themes of the game. So the script I'm very happy with so far about what I'm talking about, and I'm so pumped to work on this video. I think it's gonna be a really good video. Will it get the traction that it deserves? I don't know. Am I the one that should be able to decide something like that? I'm not quite sure. But regardless, I'm still going to work on it. I'm gonna work on it hard, and I'm gonna try my darndest. I'm gonna try my little darndest. Yeah. Cool beans. There's just one other thing that I want to touch on before we end the stream here today, and that's just if you're wondering, if anyone is wondering, whenever we're doing perspective, and as I did with this all right here today, do I need to place my horizon line directly in the center of my frame? It's a question I had when I first started trying to figure out perspective, and I got confused with it so much. And the answer is no. For a flat image, your horizon line can be right here. If this is eye level for you and you want 4,000 point perspective, okay, we just do this right here. Infinite perspective. How do we do infinite perspective? Yeah. But this is a question I had whenever I was doing like trying to figure out perspective, is how do we place this right here, our horizon line? If what you're doing is on eye level, most photographs that you are going to use as reference are going to be eye level. Most people take photographs from the way that they're looking. So if you're using a photographic reference, you can have your horizon line right here. It doesn't matter. It's going to be there a lot of the time. However, if you want to, you can have your horizon line way up here. And what does that tell us? that tells us that my camera, it was right here, but I decided to pan it downwards, to tilt it downwards like this, like I'm like a. I don't have my phone. I don't have my phone on me because it's being used as the camera right here. Taking my camera. This is my phone. This is a stand from my phone. I'm taking it head on. If I were to tilt it down like that right there to like look a little bit below, that's what we would call a pan. It moves down. Our horizon line is still up here. Our vanishing points would still fall right here, except now our horizon line is not in our picture plane. So therefore, it's going to be as if you are looking at the it's going to be as if you're looking at the top of something. So say my horizon line is way up here. It's going to be as if I'm looking more down on something. I'm panning downwards. Okay? And that's all your horizon line is saying. So if it's above, that means that you're taking your camera and you're panning downwards and you're looking down. You're going to see more as you get further and further away from that horizon line. These are going to fan out more and more, and you're going to see more of the top of that object. That's all that means. And it's the inverse. You take your horizon line and you put it below hand. What you're effectively saying is that I've taken my camera and I'm tilting it upwards. That's all it is. You're panning your camera. So if you want to sort of like emphasize that something is above you, have your horizon line slightly below your picture plane. See, that's the center right there. And I'm tilting up. Boom. And I'm looking at it like this is like a spaceship that's above me. You know, imagine that right there. And I mean, it's really that it's really that simple. That took me a while to like intuitively figure out. It confused me so much, and I wish someone would have just told me it outright, but no one ever did. But like, if you really want, you can like your horizon line. It can be tilted. Okay, it can be tilted at an angle. It doesn't matter. Your horizon line can be anywhere. If you tilt it, that just shows that I've taken my camera and I'm doing a Dutch angle. I'm looking at my camera. Boom. That's all I'm doing right there. And you can do so much more with that. If you can look up examples of that, a lot of artists, they'll use weird angles and stuff. And all it essentially is just they're taking and they're manipulating their horizon line. A lot of if you're doing like a really low angle, if you think about it, if you're talking about a camera in real life, the lowest that you can get is the floor. So some people will put their horizon lines like way at the bottom to show that they're like a little ant on the ground. And again, what that means is that, well, I guess you would do it right here. If I were to put my horizon line right here, my camera, if it were looking on the ground, I would be looking like at the little like carpet, like the carpet strands. But anything that's above it would be like way above it. So that can emphasize like power, those sorts of things. So it's really like a good storytelling, like a really good way to show storytelling. Yeah. Um, that's all I really have to say about perspective. I hope that this was helpful for anybody. Or you know, if it wasn't helpful, I hope it was entertaining. And if anything, this was really helpful for me because it feels good to be able to sort of uh, talk more and more about like what it is that I know, and this helps me get better at it. It helps me show things. There's another form of perspective that I didn't show right here. It's sort of like a half 4-point perspective. Um, I mean, I'll demonstrate it here real quick. Um, and what it essentially is like you're just like you're changing like your horizon line essentially. Like say horizons right here. You're taking this right here, boom, boom, and you're putting, uh, you're doing this right here. You're doing like sort of like a half 4-point perspective, and I think it's Peter Houston is the artist that I learned this from. But the idea is that you're cutting that sphere in half, kinda, you know, and you're only using the bottom half of that sphere. And what it does, it sort of it kind of shows that something is what's the word? It's a way to sort of just like show like a like your environment as if it's like coming up towards you. Completely like beyond me as far as like how you would do it freehand, but it's really cool stuff. I recommend checking. I think it's Houston. It's like Heaston. I think he has a YouTube video on it, but he can explain it better than I can because he's the one that sort of like invented it. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much to everybody that tuned in. Um, uh, can you tell I don't really know how to talk? This was fun. Um, I will put up I'll put up a poll sometime this next week asking well what we're gonna do for stream next Saturday. So if you or you can suggest what the stream would be in that post. Uh, whatever it is, we'll do it. And it can be anything that we want. I'll put in a poll, but if someone is like, can we do this instead? Sure, why not? So yeah, I hope to see you all next week. It probably won't be anything as complicated as all of this stupid perspective stuff. But yeah, thank you very much. Have a good night, everybody. You're welcome. Thank you, Twisted Zeus. You the goat. You the goat. Everyone here is the goat. Seriously, thank you everybody for watching. This was great. Hope you have a great night. I'm going to stretch, and I'm gonna get a little snack before I go to bed because I deserve it. Because I'm a good boy. Yeah. Okay. Good night, everybody.